Good. Everybody ready? Call the meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Here.
Commissioner Putnam?
Here.
Acting Chairman Hewart?
Here.
Commissioner Patterson?
Here.
And Commissioner Phillips?
Here.
Absent today, we have Chairman Montano and Commissioner Glass. Oh, we have in the audience present alternate Commissioner Hall.
Okay.
And
And we're going to call, you want to call them and see if they're on the line?
we have
Scott Campbell is going to be joining us via telephone, and Chairman Montano Say is going to be joining us by telephone as well. So we'll give them a moment to get them on the phone. And while we're doing that, I'll also announce that if any member of the
Welcome to the
public
conference. You are now joining the conference.
wants to call in with a comment, they can call on 310-510-0220, extension 180, which is this phone, and we'll answer it and share any other public comments that people might have.
Yeah, I don't have it open yet. Upcoming event.
Oh, in process.
In progress. Here we go. Now I'm clicking on it.
Okay.
Yoli, is that you?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we're here.
And Scott's here.
All right, Scott's here as well.
okay.
Okay.
Excellent.
Okay, our first item this evening is our consent calendar. It consists of two items, which are the minutes from the February 19th, 2020 meeting and a resolution adopting the findings for the approvals that were granted at 316 Las Lomas. I believe Commissioner Kennedy and Patterson will be abstaining from this, which we then would need Commissioner Hall.
Yes, hi, I'm here.
Excuse me.
If you can speak right into the microphone, we can barely hear you when we're on the phone.
Okay, can you hear me now? Is that better?
A little bit better, yes.
Okay. So we have two consent items, the minutes from the previous meeting in February and the resolution that was adopted for the findings for that meeting. Commissioner Kennedy and Patterson will need to abstain because I believe they were absent at that meeting. So we would just need a motion and a second to adopt these two items, approve these two items.
Wait, there's just a tiny correction. Should that not be February 19th instead of January 22nd?
On the minutes?
Well, it's actions from January 22nd, and I think I was here or something. I don't know. That just
But
confused me.
The minutes are from the
February
February
19th,
meeting.
and the actions are from January 22nd, but then it says I wasn't here. I think I was.
But you were absent for the February meeting.
Okay, but this confused me.
Okay.
Sorry. It says January 22nd, and then it has that listing, though I knew it was actions taken on February 19th. Just to clean up, just asking. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve? I'll motion the consent.
And I'll second it.
Motion and seconded, motion by Commissioner Phillips and seconded by Commissioner Patterson. No, you have to abstain.
That's right.
That's right.
I'll second it.
Sorry.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Seconded by the chair.
Just heard that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
We have to take a roll call vote since we have some members of the commission participating via phone.
Okay, thank you. Rocio?
Chairman Montano? Chairman Montano, can you hear us? I don't think she can hear us. All right. Commissioner Putnam?
Yes.
Acting Chairman Hewart?
Yes?
And Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Chairman Montano, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Speak into the phone, Rosie.
Chairman, we are voting on the first and second items on the agenda, and we're waiting on your vote.
I can hear you.
Can you just say aye?
Hi.
Thank you.
This is going to be interesting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Our next item is a public hearing for an application for a setback variance and a coastal development permit to renovate and add to an existing legally non-conforming duplex in the medium-density zone. The project is in the coastal zone and is a
Hi.
Chairman, we'll let you know when it's time to vote.
Thank you.
Wow.
The project is in the coastal development zone, the coastal zone, and is subject to a coastal development permit, which requires a public hearing and planning commission approval. The planning commission will determine whether the project is within the 300-foot appealable seaward area boundary. The project is categorically exempt under section 15301 of the state CEQA guidelines for existing facilities. The owner applicant is Daniel DeVoe. This is 115 Upper Terrace. It is in the medium density zone.
There is a time lapse.
There's a what?
A time lapse?
There will be a time lapse. If you're watching it on your computer, there is a time lapse between what you see and hear on the computer and what is happening in real time.
Chairman, can you hear us?
Yeah.
There's a time lapse online.
I'll wait for your direction.
All right, thank you.
The project is categorically exempt under section 15301 of the state CEQA guidelines, existing facilities. This is a site plan where the property exists as a legally non-conforming duplex with one off-street parking space. The non-conforming aspect of the property are the setbacks on three sides, the lot width, and the lot size. The project complies with all other development standards for the zone, and the development standard form is attached. The project proposes to increase the degree of nonconformity by adding to the north-facing side of the building a two-story addition of approximately 336 square feet. That will also be nonconforming to the required setbacks. The project proposes to add a second off-street parking space at the bottom of the lot on Middle Terrace to provide parking for the bottom unit. As we said, the project is in the coastal zone and is subject to the coastal development permit. Based on the map, the project is not within the 300-foot appealable zone. This project does require variances. In order to approve a setback variance, the Avalon Municipal Code requires that the Planning Commission make three findings under the Avalon Municipal Code, Section 9-8.203. These findings are as follows. Number one, the strict application of the zoning ordinance will result in unnecessary hardship because the minimum lot width for the medium zone is 50 feet. This lot varies from 44.98 feet at the top to 25.98 feet at the bottom. The minimum lot size for the zone is 4,400 square feet. The lot is 3,339 square feet. The required setbacks for the legally non-conforming lot reduce the usable space beyond what the code intended. There are exceptional circumstances that apply to development of said property which do not apply to other properties in the neighborhood because the lot is already developed with a duplex. This project proposes to utilize the existing footprint of the structure. The legally non-conforming size of the lot prohibits the ability to comply with the required setbacks. The granting of this variance will not be detrimental to the public welfare or neighborhood property because the project proposes to utilize the existing footprint where the smallest setback proposed for the project is on the north side and is 3 feet 6 inches. This side of the project is adjacent to an undeveloped 10-foot wide public stairway easement that belongs to the city, thus will not have a negative effect on the neighboring property. Granting of this variance will not be contrary to the objectives of the local coastal program as adopted because the project is for residential development and will not be contrary to the goals and objectives of the local coastal program, which is to protect and promote access to the coastal resources in Avalon. Staff is recommending that based on the preceding discussion of the proposed project's compliance with the findings required by the Avalon Municipal Code, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the CEQA exemption under Section 15301, Existing Facilities, subsection D and E2AB, adopt the findings and approve the coastal development permit, and make the determination that the project is not within the 300-foot appealable zone, adopt the findings as sufficient to approve the setback variance, and approve the site plan as proposed with the standard list of conditions attached as Exhibit A. And Mr. DeVoe was not able to make the trip over this evening, so I'll attempt to answer any of your questions, but if we run into a roadblock, then we can hold it over till next month.
Okay. So before we open the public hearing, are there any questions of the Planning Commission to staff about this project?
I talked to Amanda about my concerns already, so, but.
No, I mean questions, technical questions.
Yeah, well,
Anybody?
my concern is.
Not concerns.
No. Okay, all right, then
Questions.
I'm done.
Okay. Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Anybody wish to testify on this project, please come to the front, name and address. Speak loud and clear into that microphone.
Yeah, John Mello, 122 Middle Terrace. I can see down below where they want to put that easement. Right now, there's two really beautiful rock walls right there. But there's also parking right there where they've dug it out, where people, my next door neighbors, park 2 cars there. So if they put parking there for 2 cars, you're going to lose parking for those cars there, and I don't know where they're going to go. I drove up top, and I feel that if they could get an easement right across from their house, they could dig that out, very simple right there, and put parking. I don't know if they can. Or, at their house itself, it could be changed a little to make parking. But whatever you do on Middle Terrace, it's going to cause a real problem for parking because the two people that live right in those houses won't have a place to park. So you're going to lose 2 parking spaces and gain 2. That's about it. And they have some real nice rock walls there that I think my neighbor spent a lot of money putting up, and it'd be a shame to see all that go down. But, anyway, that's the only thing I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Can I speak to that? Or you want to wait?
Let's see if anybody, yeah,
Okay.
if that's all right. Amanda.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody else wish to speak on this project, for or against? No. Okay. Yeah, before we close the hearing.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that the project is providing, let me back up. This lot goes from Upper Terrace all the way down to Middle Terrace. So they are proposing a parking space off of Upper Terrace, which I think currently is accommodated for, but they're also proposing to add 1 autoet space at the bottom, so they would be taking out a small section of that rock wall, but certainly not the entire length of it.
Are you aware of the 2 spaces that were mentioned by John?
It appears that they're out on the public street, and I don't know the status of whether or not they have encroachment permits or any special permission to park
So it
there.
sounds like this proposal might eliminate one of those 2.
Possibly.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak on this? If not, I'm going to close the hearing. Okay. Hearing closed. So now,
Okay.
Comments or
Well,
concerns?
We had I didn't know if he was going to come tonight, and he had spoken to me about his concern about more loss of parking and his concern over emergency vehicles. As we all know, this is a really difficult street for people to turn around, and if you thought about emergency vehicles. So my only concern, I mean, this definitely needs help. This whole, I mean, I think it's a great development. I think it's really nice that what they have planned for this space.
If you can speak up louder, Yoli and I can barely hear you.
All right,
You need
well,
to
usually.
Raise your voice and speak right into the microphone. Thank you.
Okay, so while construction is going on, that there's probably going to be action at the top on Middle Terrace and action on, I'm just worried, Upper Terrace and then Middle Terrace. I'm a little concerned about what would happen if there's blocking of that area by the construction vehicles. Just asking for consideration of that they're aware that that is a impacted area as far as fire trucks go and anything else that might need to get up there, ambulance, whatever. So that was my only concern, but I look forward to the positive aspect of making that space what it could be.
I can say that in the past, when we've had projects occurring on on any of the terraces that are already highly impacted, what we've done in the past is the fire department goes up with the contractor and they figure out what spots they might be able to use for staging or parking, and what areas they need to keep open clearly for emergency access.
Okay, any other concerns or comments from the Planning Commission? Okay. If anybody would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, staff recommendation, and add to it a condition that the fire department be part of that process with the developer.
I'll second that.
All right, we've got a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Could you please, since we're on the phone, definitely call for a vote. Rocio?
Yes. Commissioner Kennedy?
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hewart?
Aye.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Patterson?
Aye.
And Chairman Montano?
Aye.
Thank you.
So, some of us have to excuse ourselves for number 4 due to proximity of ownership next to the project. So
Janie?
do we have a volunteer chair?
Sandra or
Sandra?
Micah?
Micah? Nobody wants to. Well, I'll let you guys figure that out. I'm going to leave this space. You can do it from there.
Okay, so we'll go forward with our next item. Commissioner Kennedy and Commissioner Hewart have recused themselves due to a property conflict. So this project is at 326C Whitley. The owner is David Fagan. It is a public hearing for a site plan to remodel and rebuild a legally non-conforming duplex in the high-density residential zone. The floor plan is to rebuild, wait a minute, let me back up. I have communication that I had sent to, I think I emailed, some of you got it in your packet, and I had emailed it to the rest of you. I'd like to address a couple of the comments in the letter before we get into the nuts and bolts of the staff report. So one of the first comments that I'd like to address is that this is a letter from Cheryl Allison, who is the next door neighbor at 326B Whitley, and she's expressing some of her various concerns about the project and how it has proceeded. So one of the first comments is that the project has had very little oversight and that a survey and review of architectural and engineering plans were not required or reviewed prior to beginning the project. This is a misleading and untrue. The owners met with myself and the building official multiple times prior to purchasing the property. The building official walked the project to determine the existing conditions. The building official has received all requested plans and details required to ensure that the property is being built to the current building code. The building official has been on site at least a dozen times. Construction requires inspections at certain benchmarks, and the building official has inspected at all the appropriate times. The second comment in the letter that you received was that it said prior to the 2018 purchase of the property, a previous building official, made it a requirement for the purchaser of the property to move the sewer lateral running from 326D Whitley under each of the properties below to Whitley to be moved out from under the properties at the purchaser's expense. Inspections of sewer laterals is a requirement of sale under the AMC, the Avalon Municipal Code. Repair of compromised laterals is also required. The city has not ever officially notified the 3 property owners that share the lateral that the lateral would have to be moved, or that the buyers of 326C would be solely financially responsible. All 3 users of the lateral would be equally responsible for moving the lateral should the city require it. Excuse me. The next comment was, if the city deemed the property condemned as required, any future structure would have to conform to the legal setbacks on all 4 sides. There is not any code requirement for a condemned structure to lose its legal nonconforming status under the zoning code. This structure has received nuisance abatement letters in the past. The structure has not ever been officially condemned. The next comment was that a survey of the property was not required until almost a year after the project began. The city does not automatically require a survey for all projects. The project was allowed to begin based on the fact the project was utilizing existing foundations. A site survey was provided by the next door neighbor for their property that seemed to confirm the location of the shared west property line. After a concern was expressed that the property was over the shared east property line on the uphill side, the city required a record of survey, whereby a survey was done and monuments were set to establish the locations of all property corners and property lines. The project is not over any of the property lines. Then there's a couple of comments about the legal non-conforming stairs that are being constructed. The stairs being constructed for the rear unit are not legally non-conforming in the way this term is used in the zoning code. It would not apply to how the stairs are being constructed. This may have contributed to the assertion that since they were not in existence upon purchase, they could not be constructed as proposed. The stairs are allowed in the setback by the zoning code, and the width of the treads conform to the building code. The building code requires that the treads, the flat part you walk on, to be 30 inches wide. The code also allows up to 3.5 inches on each end to be used for the installation of handrails. 3.5 plus 3.5 equals 7 inches. 30 inches minus 7 inches equals 23 inches of usable tread. The treads being constructed are 31.5 inches at the top step and 28.5 inches at the bottom step. The building is not perfectly parallel to the property line. The stairs only require one handrail as they are adjacent to the building. The handrails being installed will use less than 3.5 inches, thus the usable tread is greater than 25 inches. This is a building code requirement and not a planning code standard. The fire chief has inspected the stairs and provided a report stating that no hazard exists for fire, rescue, or EMS as it pertains to the stair width at this address when the project is completed. The next statement alludes to the fact that the basement level was demolished in addition to the framing on the upper floor. The basement level was not torn down. The basement is within the existing foundation walls. Most of the existing foundation walls were maintained and are being used for the project. A portion of the rear foundation's walls, as shown in the staff report, were removed and replaced in the same footprint. Then there's a statement regarding the the accuracy of one of the floor plans. The county assessor defines the property as 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, and 2 units. As shown on the floor plan for the project, the project is basically 3 rooms: a front efficiency unit, a middle common room, and a rear efficiency unit. The applicant has been upfront with their desire to add a junior accessory dwelling unit at a later date as allowed by state statutes. And then the last concern was regarding a firewall that the city had said would be installed on the portion of the house that is closest to Mrs. Allison's home. The portion of the structure referenced had 5/8 type X drywall installed on the interior of the wall to increase the fire rating to a 1-hour firewall rating. The fire sprinkler plan is in development as it is going to require a pump mechanism to provide the required pressure. So now we'll go on with the staff report. So the application is to rebuild what was an existing 1,540 square foot duplex. The proposed new structure is approximately 1,011 square feet with a total of 3 bedrooms or 3 rooms. The project includes a partially finished basement as a storage, shower, laundry room of approximately 324 square feet. The floor plan is designed to facilitate a future junior accessory dwelling unit as allowed by state statutes. The property is in the high-density residential zone. As described below, the property is legally non-conforming for setbacks and parking. The degree of nonconformity is not increasing for either aspect of the project. Density. The parcel size will allow for 1.552 units, which the city allows to be rounded up to 2. The property has paid and is paying sewer, salt, and trash annual fees for 2 units, and the project is within the allowed density. Setbacks. The high-density zoning requires 3 feet on all 4 sides for parcels of a minimum width of 25 feet and area of 2,200 square feet. The property is 20 to 21 feet wide and has an area of 1,690 square feet and is existed with legally non-conforming setbacks on 3 sides. The replaced structure on the original footprint will be legally non-conforming on 2 sides. The original rear portion of the structure has been removed and will not be replaced. Thus, the rear setback is now conforming. The front setback was conforming and is not changing. The 2 side setbacks remain the same. The degree of nonconformity is not increasing. The applicant is installing a set of stairs to the rear unit within the setback as allowed by the Avalon Municipal Code. Parcel coverage. The lot size of 1,690 square feet, parcel coverage is allowed up to 90% or 1,521 square feet. The footprint of the structure is 1,011 square feet. The project is within the allowed parcel coverage. Floor to lot ratio is allowed up to 130%. Lot size of 1,690 square feet would allow up to 2,197 square feet. The structure is 1,335 square feet, inclusive of the basement. The project is within the allowed floor to lot ratio. Number of stories. The zone allows 2 or 3 stories, depending on the slope of the lot. The existing structure was 2-story, as the basement meets the definition of a story, and a portion of the rebuilt structure will be 2-story for the same reason. The project is within the allowed number of stories. Height. The zoning requires a 1430 height envelope on slopes of over 15 degrees average slope. The lot slopes east to west and north to south. The lot rises significantly in the rear, and the height envelope would be measured 14 feet above the rear lot line, and there's a photo in the staff report. The front gable is 18 feet 10 inches at the highest point above grade, so the project is within the allowed height envelope. Parking. The zoning requires 1 autoet parking space per unit. The lot is landlocked and is legally non-conforming for parking. The density is not increasing, so the degree of nonconformity is not increasing. And I would like to note that the city is in the process of passing an ordinance where junior accessory dwelling units and accessory dwelling units would not be allowed to register an autoet. So should they choose to move forward with an accessory dwelling unit, they would not be allowed to register a vehicle. The project is allowed under the 2020 growth policy in the category of projects described below, which are projects involving existing residential structures which are to be repaired, replaced in kind, or remodeled or enlarged, provided no additional bedrooms are added or dwelling units are added to existing residential structures other than density bonus units permitted by conditional use permit, and Southern California Edison confirms in writing that water is available to serve the project as approved by the city. The project is not adding any bedrooms. The project is categorically exempt under section 15301A and subsection E1 of the state CEQA guidelines existing facilities. The existing structure was 1,540 square feet, not including the unfinished basement. A portion of the basement now has a concrete floor and plumbing for laundry and a 3/4 bath and qualifies as floor area under the Avalon Municipal Code, section 9-3.606. The second story is 1,011 square feet. The basement is 324 square feet. This brings the total floor area to 1,335. We are recommending that you can make the findings to approve the site plan as presented, and we are recommending that the Planning Commission find the project categorically exempt under section 15301A and E1, that the Commission find the project complies with the growth policy, that the Planning Commission adopts the findings to support approval of the site plan for the renovation and rebuild of the duplex to the legally non-conforming setbacks. And the representative applicant and neighbors are in the audience. So do you have any questions for me?
Any questions for staff?
So the ADU does not get parking, but the original would be allowed an autoet.
No,
No, the
No.
two,
no way, because it's upstairs.
I understand,
The
but
two-
on the street.
the two
Well, the street's
existing
public.
units would be allowed to register autoets.
The 2 existing.
Correct, because the house has always had 2 units. So they would be allowed to register autoets. But should they choose to put in a junior accessory dwelling unit, they would not be allowed to register an autoet. So the project is legally non-conforming for parking, and since they're not adding units that require parking, they would be allowed to keep that legal non-conforming status.
Parking's a problem. Well, yeah, Whitley's like the worst.
Okay, I'll open it up for the public hearing. Any questions, concerns from the public?
Yeah, Rock Gosselin, 318 Whitley. I'm basically just trying to ask a simple question of numbers of bedrooms, because it's still nebulous between talking with neighbors, talking with the contractors, what was there and what could be there. It was 2 one-bedroom, one-bath units that made up the duplex, correct?
The county shows it as 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2 units.
2 units. So 2 one-bedroom, one-bath units. And they're building back 2 units that are each 1 bedroom, 1 bath. Or if it's multiple baths, I get it, that's not the water rights issue. But basically,
Correct.
we're getting 2 one-bedroom units. But you could allow now, because of the state law, an additional 1-bedroom ADU.
Correct, and I think the question has not been fully resolved. Edison has taken the position that accessory dwelling units require water allocation.
Okay, so it's still kicking that can down the road. The ADU still has to go through other steps. I just wanted to double check, because of the density of that whole street, especially that part of the street, that we weren't getting another bedroom up there. Because I'm impacted as much as Cheryl Allison is people walking up and down those steps. So it's a density issue that I'm wanting to double check on. That's the reason I'm here. If 2 bedrooms were up there and 2 bedrooms are being built and it's going to be used as 2 bedrooms total between the 2 units, I can't say anything against the project, and also the fact I've stayed silent because I thought it was a great thing, because I've owned up on that street since 2000 and had to look at what existed there. So I'm glad it's, going to finally be resolved. But I just want to make sure that I'm not seeing an additional bedroom until the ADU situation is moved forward with.
I would agree that is correct.
Okay.
Until the freshwater allocation issue is resolved, because the state has mandated you have to allow them.
Something, if it's within the purview of the
Correct.
utilities, obviously. Correct. Okay, and then no C of O will be granted until the firefighting issue is resolved.
Correct.
Okay.
Maya Olden, 326D Whitley, West Whitley. My curiosity is how is it that you can improve lines? Because my survey was done by Chris Nelson and Associates in June, and there was a discrepancy with LA County, and there's still a discrepancy with LA County. We have just recently just had a discussion with them and Chris Nelson, and they said they can't file anything until the discrepancy is solved with LA County. So how are lines going to be approved if you guys don't have my side?
We don't have your survey, Maya,
Correct,
but
that's
we
what I'm
have.
saying. It wasn't filed because LA County says there's a discrepancy and they want that settled first before they will file it. So how are we going to approve theirs if you're not absolutely sure that those lines are correct? That's all I want to know.
We have a survey that they did of their property,
Mm-hmm.
and
So you have one survey, but you don't have anything else to compare it with. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay.
And typically
So, I don't mean to interrupt. So what all I want is a postponement of this project and a cease and desist until my survey has been filed and you have something to compare it with on both sides. And then you are absolutely sure that those lines are correct. Otherwise, it will fall into a civil court. That's all. That's all I'm saying. That's all.
so
I'm
is there concern that their structure is
that
over
they're
the property?
encroaching? Absolutely correct. Yes.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cheryl Allison, 326B Whitley. First, I just wanted to ask a question on the ADU issue. I understand that you can have one ADU attached, but you could have a second one that's not attached. Is that correct or no? Is it either or and? I was told it was and.
Because the law is really new on multi-unit structures, I don't know if 2 ADUs could be approved for it.
Okay, the only reason I'm asking is, as you mentioned, there's an area that is currently not rebuilt.
Right.
And that would possibly leave room, because it is enough room, for
In the
a
back.
detached ADU, so that would be a 4th unit on that property.
1 second.
Okay.
This is Amanda.
I'm here.
Hey, David. We are just in the process of discussing your item. Are you where you can watch us on a computer? Okay, do you have a comment you want to make now, or you just want to listen in? Okay. Okay, I'm not quite sure how I should do this. Okay, I'm just going to put you on speakerphone, okay? And we'll just hold, okay. This is David Fagan, the owner. So he's watching via computer and he's going to listen in. Can you hear me, David? David, can you hear me?
Yes. I can barely hear you. If you can, please speak into the microphone.
David, there's a delay between what you'll see on the computer and what's happening in real time. So don't let that throw you off, okay?
I'm not. I just can't hear you.
And we'll try to speak clearly into the microphone so that it picks up on the website. Okay, go ahead, Cheryl, I'm sorry.
Okay, so anyway, I was just curious on that. And on the requiring of the building to be demolished, I understand that there's different wording than I'm using, but previously that building was uninhabitable, and generally that means that an uninhabitable building, I believe from what I read, is supposed to be either red tagged or they have to fix the repairs. This one was severely uninhabitable and was actually leaning towards our building for decades. And because I'd been told, I don't remember if it was late 1990s or early 2000s, that it was intended to be red tagged because of a lot of the issues. I mean, the ceiling was caved in, the building was leaning, the back walls, mud had fallen through. So, I mean, it would have required a lot of work. And I guess I'm just saying that I understand it never happened, but if in the future we can go forward and look at these buildings. This building was leaning as much as the one on Upper Catalina was, that was demolished, just as much, same issue. And if it would have been taken care of at the time as it should have, whether the owner chose to rebuild it or tear it down and sell the property, doesn't matter to me, but what would have been rebuilt, if that would have happened, would have had to be required to go within the regular building code instead of being able to ignore the setbacks.
And that is incorrect.
Okay.
That if they came to the city and they said, we have legally non-conforming setbacks, and this has happened all the time in the flats. If they want to rebuild to that footprint and it's legally, and they're not increasing the degree of non-conformity, in other words, they're not moving it any closer to the property line, then they would be allowed to retain that legal non-conforming status, and the city would not require them to completely demolish it. And it's very similar to what's happening with Mr. DeVoe's project up on 115 Upper Terrace, except that he is adding onto his building where it will be moving into the setbacks more than what it is currently, and that's why we processed a variance for him.
Okay. Perhaps I wasn't clear. What I'm trying to say is if the prior owner demolished the building and sold the lot, the new owners could not build the non-conforming building back.
If they scraped it to the dirt, you are correct.
Yes, only the prior owner could. Right. So anyway, I realize that that's a moot point now, but I would like for the future that maybe we just all look better at some of these projects that, or properties that are really out of, aren't being well taken care of and could have been dangerous to us. One night the wind was so bad, we actually, when my kids were little, we actually moved out and stayed at somebody else's house because we were afraid it was going to fall over on us. And anyway, but back to the non-conforming. The stairs, I guess I am not, maybe I'm not understanding the rules for stairs, but the way, what it says is, this is for external stairways, width, stairways serving an occupant load of more than 50 shall not be less in width than 44 inches. Stairways serving an occupant load of 50 or less may be 36 inches wide. Private stairways serving an occupant load of less than 10 may be 30 inches wide. Trim shall not reduce the required width by more than 3.5 inches. Handrails may project from each side of the stairway a distance of 3.5 inches into the required width. Stringers may project 1.5 inches. I understand, and you had told me your interpretation of that was that the stair width could be cut off and the railings put there. To me, it says the stairs still have to be 30 inches, in this case with under 10 occupants, but they can be on top of it, which means that only where the posts are actually coming into the width of the stairway. Not that every stair can be cut off down to 27 inches. And by the way, the bottom one is 26.5 and the top one is 29.5.
Okay.
And I was actually,
I mean, I measured them as well, and I disagree.
Right, but still, they're under 30 inches. And I was told by the building inspector, we talked about the 30-inch thing, and I understood. I even asked, who makes sure that there's never more than 10 people in those 2 units at once, and all of that. But nobody ever said that they could be less than that. So then I was told, yes, they can because they existed before, and yes, they did, but that was when the previous owner was there, and they were not purchased with the stairs there. So I still don't understand that, and I talked about it with the contractor before the old building was demolished because I was concerned about the property line and there not being that much room, and it was going to end up over the property line if they were legal. I don't read that as being legal, being 26.5 inches or 27.5 or 29.5.
Okay.
So it's just an interpretation.
That's true.
Okay. So I don't know how that gets resolved.
Well, I think ultimately the building official has the final say on the building code. And I do want to remind this planning commission that this is a building code issue. This is not a planning code issue. And so the building official has the authority to make that determination, and the stairs are the legal width at the top, but they narrow down to the bottom. And so we've looked at the code and we've determined that the stairs are going to be sufficient and they're going to substantially meet the requirements of the code, of the building code.
Because we're letting it be smaller than they're required to be. Because he can't.
No,
correct?
because the building code says the tread needs to be 30 inches, and you can use 3 inches on either end of that tread for a handrail, which means potentially you could have a handrail post on every single tread that uses 3 inches on each end, 3.5 inches of it on either end, which could reduce the usable tread to a minimum width of 23 inches on each and every tread. And so we've looked at the size of the tread, and each and every tread is going to have 25 inches or more available to it from top to bottom.
Okay, now it's 25. Okay.
Well,
I'm sorry.
30 inches.
Just changed quite a bit since I've been trying
When
to
I
understand
amped up there and measured it, the top tread was 32.5 inches from the face of the building to the property line, but they're leaving about an inch gap between the end of the tread and the building. So that would reduce the tread by an inch. So now we're at 31.5 inches at the top and 28.5 inches at the bottom. So if you take less than 3.5 inches off the side, that's 25 inches. at the bottom step, and they get gradually wider as you go up.
Okay, so anybody in town can build stairs that narrow. I just don't, you don't see it. I'm just making sure. That's interesting. And God, I had one thing that just went out of my head. I'm sorry, totally forgot. All right, well, I guess they get to have what they want. Oh, I know what it was. I was going to correct one thing that was said. I actually did call the planning department and I asked why the plans didn't go to the planning commission originally. And I was told it was only a remodel, and I said, well, are there plans? And, you know, well, no, there's not architectural plans, there's just some drawings. And I just thought, I mean, every wall was taken down. I'm not saying the concrete walls, the foundation, but every wood wall, every structure was removed, top and bottom.
That's, I don't know what you mean by top and bottom. Yes, the entire wooden
top floor and
structure.
bottom floor, both floors were.
No, the structure is 2-story.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom story is behind the concrete block walls. The wooden structure on top of those concrete block walls was a single-story structure.
Okay.
Correct?
No.
So you're saying there was a 2-story structure on top of the concrete walls?
There was the 2-story structure up above, and then what you're calling the basement was also wood structure, except that the back wall was a retaining wall. That's all.
I don't.
Maybe I'm not understanding 2-story.
When you went into the structure, the top doorway into the structure, was there a set of stairs going up to another level?
Not inside, on the outside.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
the wooden
there's-
structure that was on top of the concrete walls was a single-story structure. So the entire building structure was 2 stories only because the basement meets the definition of a story, because a certain section of it, under the Avalon Municipal Code, a story is created if any more of the level is more than 5 feet above grade. So if the finished floor at any point is more than 5 feet above grade, that's considered a story.
Right.
So the project was 2 stories in the front, where you have the basement
Yeah.
story and then the wooden structure on top. The wooden structure in the back was a single-story structure. So it was a single-story structure.
I'm just talking about the front part was actually 2 stories, and
Correct.
all of the walls were removed, top and bottom, all of them.
Yes, the project was stripped to I don't want to say finished
There were
floor.
no
to
walls.
Correct. The
Right, at all.
the wooden portion of the structure was taken off.
So
Correct.
it was completely rebuilt. Correct.
The wooden portion of the structure has been rebuilt. Correct.
Yeah, not the back wall, the part of the back wall, right? Okay, well, I guess, unless somebody has questions, I guess I don't have anything else to say.
What's the measurement between your house and the new structure?
Depends on where you're standing. The smallest distance is 23 inches.
Wow. That's what I thought.
Yeah, now between us and the property line is less, but the actual part of the structure, the closest, is 23 inches. And that's why I asked about the firewall. I didn't know that. I wasn't trying to whine. I was just told that, wow, if it's that close, you need to make sure they're putting in a firewall. And I guess it was not originally intended, but it is now, and I'm glad to hear it was done. I didn't know that.
Right.
I just was kind of hoping somebody would just say something. I had asked about it, but nobody ever got back to me, so.
It's inside, it's on the inside wall. It's not under the siding.
Mm-hmm. Which it could have been, but yeah, they put the siding up after, yeah. Okay, I guess I have nothing else to say.
No. Well, I just was wondering about the fire system, the system. I mean, it
The fire
says,
suppression.
well, it says in here that it's under, the construction's so far along, and if they haven't designed that yet, it's getting a little late to do it.
It's my understanding that it's still under development. They're working with their engineer to put to determine how they're going to put a pump in to get the required pressure.
Yeah, and then does that require water, more water, because you're adding something? And, you know, I think you'd have to, you know, if they're gonna do a ADU, and if you have to have more water, but at least you'd have to have more water to do a fire sprinkler system.
Typically, water allocations are not required for fire sprinkler systems because fire sprinkler systems, they're a stand-ready service.
Mm-hmm.
So you charge the system and then it sits there and waits until you need it. It's not a capacity use type of use like a normal structure. And as we've said, the ADU is more than likely going to require a water allocation from Edison.
That's
But
what
fire
I mean.
sprinkler systems do not require additional allocations.
If you could make it work on that hill. I mean, that is, like you're saying, they gotta put a pump in there, that's
correct.
I mean, there's areas that haven't been able to do that because you can't get the pressure.
That's correct.
So
That was the situation for a long time over on Hill Street,
Yeah,
I
that's what I
believe.
mean. So
And then the
there's-
city did some improvements to the system so that they could get the adequate
But
pressure
up
over
on,
there.
you know, there, and that particular thing, up that far up the hill, so if there's not enough water allocated,
I'll say it again, fire sprinkler systems do not call for a water allocation.
okay, I just meant for the whole project. then.
Right, and the ADU will require it.
Yeah.
And one question, they'll need to have a backup in case electricity goes out for the pump, correct?
I'm not that familiar enough with the fire sprinkler systems, Cheryl, to know if they require backup
I'm only-
batteries or anything
yeah,
like
I'm
that.
asking because a lot of times when you have a fire, the electricity goes out.
That's
So
true.
that may
That's true.
nullify any kind of fire suppression system. So just asking, any questions of me? 'Cause it sounds like I'm done.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Okay, just one last thing. I think what I was trying to say about the stairs is from the beginning, maybe they could have just planned to have regular stairs, you know, normal wide stairs put in. But
There's-
anyway, I understand it wasn't done. Thank you.
David Zeller, 5 Cabrillo Drive. I'm the contractor on the project and the representative for David Fagan, the owner. And I'm available for questions. I think Amanda was really clear.
Okay, one moment. Yes, sir, David, go ahead. Can you hear me, David?
Yes.
Okay. Say your question.
Okay. Cheryl asked if there were any questions for her. So I have a question for her.
Okay. Give her a second to get back up to the podium.
We usually, we usually ask questions of the commission, not of the witnesses. So if you have a question or comment, please direct it to the commission. Excuse me, and then they will direct a response.
Did you hear that, David? Can you hear me? Okay, so you need to ask me the question, David.
Okay. So I am trying.
Cheryl asked if there were any questions for her. I have a question.
Okay, I have to turn the volume down here.
Yeah, it gets confusing.
Okay. Okay, should I go ahead now?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay. So, well, first question for the commission is everybody that's present there aware that we took an old structure that had been neglected and a fire hazard and a health hazard, and we have already built the structure that's there according to Amanda's and the building officials' requirements and gotten the permits and have complied with everything, and that this structure, the entire thing is basically completed at this time. I'm just wondering if everybody's aware of that.
I believe the commissioners are all aware of the status of the project, David. Probably most of them have visited the site and seen what's there.
Okay, so I am trying to figure out why the neighbor is concerned. She's been attempting to halt our progress because of any number of things that she could find to complain about. I just thought I'd find out, for instance, why is she concerned with the width of our stairs?
I think my understanding is that there was concern that they did not meet the appropriate building code.
Right. No, I understand that, but I'm trying to figure out why that is of concern to her.
I think for the public, you can ask questions of the commission, you can make comments of the commission. You do not have to respond to any questions unless you wanted to, insofar as they're not being directed at the staff or commission.
Okay. I think I heard what you said. Of course, Cheryl, she doesn't have to respond, but we have been complying with everything since before we bought this property, and we have been tried to be good neighbors, and we have been constantly badgered, and I have written emails and left phone calls to try and find out what is it that this neighbor wants, and I have been unable to find out what she wants, and so we are put in this horrible position of being tortured for the last many months, and all we do is check with the building official and with the planning director, making sure that we're doing everything the way we're supposed to do it, and this person keeps returning to the city trying to find something to get us to halt our project. And I don't understand why, and I wish I would understand what this person wants. I heard her a minute ago being frustrated and saying, well, I guess these people are going to get what they want, and I'm trying to figure out what would please her, because there's nothing I'd rather do. I thought she'd be pleased when we, applied to get rid of the old fire and health hazard that was there, that she stated was leaning in her direction. Now we have a new safe structure, and we're going to have much better fire protection and better everything. And so I just don't know why she wants us to stop this project.
I think maybe we can keep this between the two, and this is not our concern. This is between the two people.
Okay. Well, I'd like to make sure it goes on the record. I am totally stupefied that we have complied with everything asked of us since before we bought the property, and we have gone above and beyond to build a structure that the community would be proud of, that would be safe, that was an improvement upon what was there, less square footage, much better quality construction, everything possible, and that now that we're almost done with the project, that we're being badgered and harassed, that the city is being used to harass a neighbor. And I think if you were to, off the record, ask other city officials about this, they would confirm this. This person, for whatever reason, I don't know why, apparently does not want an improvement on that lot. And unfortunately, it's a little late for that because we're about done with everything. I cannot imagine what would happen if the Planning Commission halted this project at this juncture after we have spent a fortune and done everything legally.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Listening.
We're going to bring it back up into the commissioners, okay? Hang
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm available for questions, but I want to clarify a couple things with for Commissioner Putman. We just finally got the fire sprinkler plans. The engineering had been going on for some time with the pump, and it was complicated. We've been working with Edison. on the pressure. We're at the very end of the line up there, so we're too far away to get the high pressure and at the very end of the line. So we just got that done, and it's with the installer, so that's in process.
I mean, that's just a concern in general. I mean, that Whitley's old, Whitley's up and down, and it's, that was just a concern. I'm also sort of concerned about the lack of having to check the lateral, because that'll affect Maya, it'll affect Cheryl, it'll affect up and down if there's a failure there. And those things
of the sewer lateral?
Yeah.
It was checked.
Yeah, the city inspected
The
it.
city inspected it.
So that you ran the test
Yeah, they ran a camera test, they ran it through the whole
yeah,
lateral.
okay, it sounded like that wasn't necessary, that what, in reading this, it said it wasn't necessary. You know, and I asked Amanda the other day, because to me, that would be necessary, so they did run.
It was inspected, Commissioner Putnam, and they were some conditions found, I think, at the top and at the bottom, and this project has repaired the lateral under their structure. I think Cheryl had repaired hers a long time ago, and then at some point, Maya will probably be doing some work on hers as well.
Yeah, because if you're all on a common line, you all suffer.
Yeah. But they've done repairs. Come up to the microphone so they can hear you, Cheryl.
All I wanted to say was, it was our understanding, we were told by the realtor that the building official had required whoever bought the property to move the lateral, because it's basically a main lateral running under all the buildings, and he said that that is not allowed. You can't have a lateral running under 3 different properties.
That's
so
correct.
It was supposed to be moved to go down the stairs, and the property owner at 326A actually put in a sleeve to make it easier once that property sold to run that lateral down past his property. I was told that the purchaser would also have to move my lateral, because I had my lateral that attaches to that lateral.
Right.
Because I had already replaced mine. Now, if that part isn't true, I would understand if I would have to pay to have mine attached. But we were told, and so were prior people that were in escrow, that they would have to go to their expense to move that lateral all the way down. And that's why a couple of them fell out, which I do know for a fact, fell out of escrow because of that. So that's where I'm not sure how it changed from, it was actually through 2 building officials to the way it ended up with it not being moved. And that's the part I didn't understand.
I think for new construction, that you would not be allowed to run a sewer lateral under your neighbor's property. But it is a situation that exists in a lot of places in Avalon. You see a lot of it up on Metropole, a lot of it on the terraces where people share laterals, and laterals run under bits and pieces of other people's property. So what the city has done is they've allowed in some places for them to continue to share it, but they've had to repair it or sleeve it. Some cases maybe they've had to replace it. It may be that there was a misunderstanding under the previous building officials when they said the building code will not allow you to run a lateral under somebody else's property. I believe if the property owner at the bottom goes forward with any new construction, that lateral will not be able to continue under that new construction. And that may be the point at which it gets moved. In other situations, it's been a cost that had to be shared by everyone that was sharing the lateral. And it wasn't just the cost burden of just one person, of just one user of the lateral. So.
I have a question. Is the stairwell, the stairs in question, public access to several apartments?
No. In fact, this project is actually on a flag lot. So the stairs in front of this structure and the stairs in front of Cheryl's home belong to this property. There's a little flag. But once you get past Mrs. Allison's property, then it goes down. It becomes.
I have a question.
It's an easement. It's not a public easement. It's an easement across private property for the use of the stairs. Yes, ma'am.
Yoli, go ahead and proceed with your question.
Hi. Yes, I have a question. Amanda, when these permits were issued, what were the permits issued for?
It started out, they were going to do a renovation and remodel, and then once they got into the structure, they realized that the wooden part of the building on top of the foundation's walls were not salvageable, and so they were allowed to demo the wooden part of the building off the concrete block foundation.
So it was like a remodel?
It started out as that, yes.
Because it looks like a new construction.
It is. From the foundation, everything above the foundations is new construction.
Can I make a clarification?
Yes, thank you, Dave.
If it's a two-story house in the front, the entire first floor of the house, the framing remained. So that wood framing on the foundation is existing. We added to it, but we didn't take it down. The part that we took down was on the second floor platform, where we rebuilt those walls and the roof, but the whole first floor remained. It did not come down.
Correct.
So, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Yoli.
I'm sorry. So I was just concerned onto what the process, I mean, I have two concerns. The concerns is that it's gotten this far. It's almost finished, complete. And I have a question to the fact that the owner concerned was, how did it get this far? Did you have any kind of email from the owner in the beginning or with the concerns?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yoli, can you repeat your second question, please?
Did you get any emails from any of the adjacent property owners in the beginning of this project with concerns that they are bringing up tonight?
Yes, the adjacent property owner has been concerned about the project from the beginning.
Did you get to hear that, Chairman?
No, I did not. Can you please relay that message to me?
Yes, the surrounding neighbors, one that is specifically adjacent, has been concerned about this project since the beginning.
Okay. And so the permits that were given from the planning department.
Yes, continue.
To the owner for the remodel and was inspected by our inspector, satisfied the municipal code?
Yes.
For remodel?
Yes.
But the concerning thing is it just seemed like it was a simple remodel and then it turned into this huge new construction.
I think
brand new building. So I'm not sure.
I think the challenge is that if you call something new construction, it implies that it was construction from an empty lot. And this was not new construction on an empty lot. Is there basically a new structure on top of the existing foundations? Yes.
I believe her concern is kind of the same way I'm wondering, is how did it get to near completion and now it's coming to us?
Because I gave them approval to go forward with it, knowing that it had reached a point where the wooden part of the second story would have to be replaced. But because they were building on their existing footprints and they were not increasing the legal nonconforming status of the structure, we allowed them to go forward. The question came up as to whether or not I had exceeded my authority in allowing that, and that's why we're in front of you this evening.
Does that answer your question, Yoli? Is that the same question?
Okay, even when it's in the rough stage right now, it's still in the rough stage, it's not completed.
Yeah, it's not fully completed. We have a roof on, siding on, we're ready to put drywall up and get final inspection, so it's not a finished house completely. There's still a few elements to finish, but it's 90% possibly completed.
Can we see if you can get an answer from Chairman
Chairman, did
Montano?
you get a clear answer from what was said?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
No, but, you know, you've got to agree, it seems like it grew and grew, and it should have, you know, were additional permits pulled or the valuations raised?
The
or whatever?
valuations were adjusted and the permits were adjusted to reflect the change in the project.
I guess before we go further, I should close public comment since we're now closing public.
I just want to reiterate, Amanda said it in the staff report, but I just want to reiterate that, you know, we had John up for every inspection that was required, and I don't know how many other times we asked John to come up when we ran into a problem or a situation that I wanted to have him look at before we proceeded. So we were completely transparent with the whole thing. I had meetings with Amanda, the owners had meetings with Amanda, with John, the entire process. So this whole thing has been a transition from a very rotten structure back to a really solid structure, but with guidance from the city building official and the city planning director. It was an ongoing process that we really worked together on it to put the building back within the footprint that we had and maintain its non-conforming status.
Okay, great. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing and open it.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
One last thing, as far as abiding by all the lines and having the inspector there all the times. We had a situation under the side house where the pipes were all being replaced.
Can you talk into the microphone?
Every pipe inside of the house has been replaced by Montana Plumbing, by CIP Plumbing, who is a licensed contractor plumber, by the way. We basically had been working on it, and he did it in stages because he had a contract with White's Landing. So he was coming to me on the weekends to do so. A Thursday before a weekend, I had been...
Wait, David, hold on just a second. We have someone at the podium.
I had been ill, and I had been in the hospital for the last 6 months. In fact, I only found out about this meeting this Saturday, so that I could be here. What ended up happening was that Mr. Zeller sent me a series of texts that basically telling me what he was going to do, not asking me permission to be on my property, at no expense to me, to fix the pipe that he went onto the property to break himself, because the pipes were crumbling. There was a slight drip. It was runoff water, not sewage. However, he told me that the inspector had come and told him to do so. And when I spoke to the inspector, he knew nothing about it. So this is the kind of little whatever. These are not things that I'm concerned with as this committee goes, but this is the kind of discrepancies that have been happening throughout the entire of this building. And I can't tell you how many times that the work, on Sundays, when it just specifically says no working on Sundays, the hammering under my bedroom window, under everyone, because of the noise, of the concentration of that area. I don't care what you build on your property, you build whatever you want to. But the bottom line is, there's so many other people that are affected, not just the people that are here today, but between the noise and everything else. But again, sent an unlicensed plumber onto my property to cut a hole into the floorboard without me knowing, as I had to run out and grab behind me to come and find out what the hell was going on his project. And all I got out of him was a text that said, "You're welcome." Any questions?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I was not aware that they were working on Sunday. If we had known, we would have sent code up there and had them stopped or issue a citation.
Okay.
I did not know.
From this point forward, if they're working on a Sunday, absolutely.
Yes,
Thank
for
you
sure.
very much. Appreciate it.
Can I speak again?
It's up to you.
I'm going to close the public hearing.
Yeah, you're going to close it?
Yes. Okay, I'm opening it for concerns from the staff or commission?
I still have a concern about parking. If there are going to be 2 vehicles on that street, where are they going to park? You know, I would make a condition of approval to have 1.
To restrict the vehicles registered to it?
Mm-hmm.
Any other concerns?
Well, the problem with that is if it meets if you could have 1 per unit and there's 2 units, and so that would be an exception and a variance to say you could only have 1. You choose the unit you're going to have it for. And that's the problem. A lot of these things that come up, you know, you don't want to see them, but if they meet the criteria, basically you've got to go with it. Or change the...
Is that a variance?
Change everything.
You would be denying them the use of their property that everyone else has.
Would open us up to suits, I'm sure.
Okay. And then the other one was, Maya, you're, oh, I can't talk to you, huh? That was a postponement.
Yoli and I cannot hear anything that's been said the last 3 minutes during commissioner comments.
Okay, there was a question about the parking, and then I'm anticipating that Commissioner Hall was going to ask about the survey question. Mr. Fagan had a survey done on his property. They set the monuments. If there's a battle between the surveyors, I'm not entirely comfortable saying that this survey is incorrect or Maya's survey is incorrect, but we have a survey, it has a surveyor's stamp on it, and they've gone up there and set the monuments and set the property lines. It unfortunately could deteriorate into, it may end up being a civil matter between Maya and Mr. Fagan, should you come up to where you've got the same surveyor giving you 2 different pieces of information. But based on what we have in front of us, the property has been found to not be over the property line.
Anything else from the commission?
I'd just like to say I'm sorry that these things, it's sort of a bad precedent, that this started as a remodel and grew like Topsy, but, you know, we didn't hear about it. And I mean, if you know, if it was appropriately handled over the counter in essence, but it, yeah, it looks, in fact, I questioned why this was coming when it was so far along. I just think it looks, I don't know, somehow it looks bad when you get to this point when, I mean, when you're saying it's not close to the end, you're hanging drywall, you're pretty far down the road to completion.
I understand how it happened, but
yeah, that I just, yeah.
It's unfortunate for the neighbors, it's unfortunate for the property owners, it's lessons learned for us.
That's what I mean, that's what I'm
Right.
just, I'm sorry that the situation exists, and it's, you know, we're kind of in a bind to, you know, approve something that's essentially been approved, but, and it's, yeah.
I would actually like to move to postpone this until...
When I could speak for the record, I'd just like to clarify some things.
Go, Scott.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that remember that this project started and during the whole process, the contractor came to the city and got permission to do. This is not a situation where we've had many times before where we've had contractors that don't ask for permission and aren't keeping city staff advised. What happened was the project just kind of changed, And once it changed so much, Amanda, in consultation with our office, decided that we needed to bring this to the Planning Commission as quickly as possible, which is what happened. So I think that this is an unusual circumstance, but I think it needs to be clear that this is not an instance where the contractor was cheating, which sometimes happens.
Yeah, I believe that was clear to all of us, that the contractor is there at every moment. It's just, it seems like an unfortunate time. But I would like to, I would like to postpone it until we get the survey from Maya's surveyor. So.
Well, they can hold up the COO, the certificate of occupancy, at the very end, but then that's really the very end. That's when everything is already done.
I can understand the reason why that would be an option. My concern is we don't know what the holdup is with the other survey. I'm
ready to speak before any further action is taken.
Okay. Can we allow Mr.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Go, David.
Is it my turn to say something?
It's your turn, and then we're closing the public comments.
Okay. I cannot tell you how absolutely shocked and completely stressed out I am to have done every single thing according to instructions and gotten permits and permission and even encouragement. I think that the Planning Commission is not looking at this thing with any perspective. There was a rickety old structure there. It was not condemned. We could have just purchased it, gone in and done shoddy work, and gotten the plumbing and electrical up to better condition and literally moved in. If that is not correct, I would like to hear so now. I believe that that is correct. This is not a discretionary project. We simply said we'd like to come in and fix everything up that's there. We didn't expand any of the boundaries. We did nothing to encroach on anyone's property. We even obtained a survey to confirm that when it was requested of us. We have a smaller footprint. We have a much, much safer structure that is no longer leaning. It is no longer a fire hazard or a health hazard where vagrants might go in there and try and cook or something. We have done, I hate to sound like Trump, but we have done an outstanding job on every level. We have spent a fortune there in good faith that we could rely on the permits and permission that we received to do everything. And now, because of one complaining neighbor that has been out to get us since before we bought the property, you want to put a hold on our project when we have everything permitted and have violated no law. I've never heard of anything like it. And I don't mean to be unpleasant or nasty in my tone, but if I had known that this was even a possibility, I would have had an attorney present at this hearing. So I am completely flabbergasted. I cannot afford to put a hold on this project, and we're almost done. And I don't see any matter of law that has come across this commission today. Amanda has answered every question. She's been completely thorough. She is the planning commissioner, and there is not one thing you can point to that has changed. We don't need to change the parking requirements. We could have moved in there and had the same parking requirements. All we're guilty of is following the building codes, the laws, getting permission, doing a thorough job, and thoroughly improving the property. We added nothing. We just made it smaller and safer. So I would request that you unfortunately will have to honor the permits that we have. Otherwise, again, I don't mean to be unpleasant or threatening. I am so stressed and so angry about this that if anything interferes with our completion of this project at this point, it's a legal matter, and it can only go to my attorney, and it can only get worse for the city, because I have not violated anything. No one has even suggested that.
Okay, David, I'm going to cut you off there. You've reached your 3-minute time.
Okay, if I could make a comment on the record for everyone.
Go ahead, Scott.
Again, we've gone down this path prior, and the reliance upon city permits does not excuse compliance with the code. That was the whole issue in the Tiblisa case, and we litigated that, and the city won. Having said that, I want to remind everyone what the standards are. This is a site plan approval. And so under the municipal code, the approval or disapproval has to be based on the following 3 factors. 1, does every use, development of land, and application of development standards, are they in compliance with the provisions of the municipal code? 2nd, does every use, development of land, and application of the development standards, is that suitable for the site of this particular use or development? And does the total development, including the prescribed development standards, is that arranged to avoid traffic congestion, ensure the protection of public health, safety, and welfare, prevent adverse effects on neighboring property, and is in accordance with all elements of the general plan? And the 3rd standard is this use suitable and functional development design for that property? And so the issues are, does the replacement of a structure that was there before with a smaller structure meet those standards? That's up for you to decide.
Okay.
So, I guess if there's a suit, it will be between the 2 landowners and...
Yes.
Yeah, we're pretty well stuck with.
Is there a motion? Is there a motion?
I can't hear. Can you say something?
We're waiting for someone to make a motion to approve the site plan.
I'll make a motion to approve.
And do we have a second?
I will second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Putnam?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Hall?
Yes.
Yes.
And Chairman Montano?
Yes.
Thank you.
And that's it. I'll go get...
That was a shit show.
Give us a second. We're gathering all of their commissioners.
David?
Yeah.
David, can you hear me?
I mean, it just, I don't know. We had to, we had to do what we had to do, but at the same time, it was like.
David, can you hear me?
In this position.
Yeah.
So the motion passed, the approval passed.
Can I breathe now?
You can breathe. Take a deep breath.
Can other people hear what we're saying right now?
Yeah, I've got you on speakerphone. How about I call you, I'll give you a call tomorrow.
Okay, thanks very much.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Should we take a break?
Do you need a break?
I don't, I've taken a break.
Anyone else need a break?
No? Okay.
Okay.
No, I'm getting hungry. Let's get on with it.
Thank you, Micah. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That was really good. That was so hard.
Yeah. You earned your keep today, it sounds like.
So our last item is we have a draft ordinance in front of you for the changes to how we handle our conditional use permits. And I thought I had a copy of it. So we've provided, you passed out the copies, Rocio? Yes. So you want to take a look at that and see if there's anything that you get one for me? Thank you.
Amanda, perhaps it makes sense for me to just explain the changes that are in the red line version that are different from the version that was included in the packet, if that's appropriate.
That would be very helpful, Scott. Thank you.
Okay, so the changes I made are really non-substantive. The first thing is that these aren't permits, they are licenses. And so this would be under Business 3, under Chapter 3. So I just went through the document and I changed everything from permits to license. So that is really the major substantive change throughout this. If I could turn your attention to section, it's on the 4 pages in under the hearing. That is an open issue. And specifically, the issue is as follows. It has been the Planning Commission's expressed desire in the past that even though we are moving this out of the planning section, that there still be the opportunity for a public hearing. And so, 2 questions for the Planning Commission. One, do you want to notice these matters in the same manner in which we notice CUPs that come before you? And with that, there's a certain perimeter around the house where the neighbors are given notice. I think that's what your direction is. I just want to confirm that. Then the second issue and the bigger issue is, do you want to always have a public hearing on these? Because now we're taking these out of the municipal code for planning, the question is, do you actually want to have a public hearing? And there are 3 things. One, you've decided you want to hear it. So there's 2 ways to do a public hearing. One is the exact same way you've been doing it for the last 20 years, with people coming up and they meet the standards, and then you determine whether it's granted or not. The second matter is, because this is now a license, you have the option of saying, we're going to give notice to everyone, and we're only going to have a public hearing if someone complains about this matter. In other words, you send out the public notice. If none of the neighbors complain, if no one's complaining about it, do you want to have a public hearing since these are going to be licenses? You don't have to, but you don't have to have a public hearing, but you either have a public hearing or maybe you decide to have a public hearing only if one of the neighbors or a certain number of neighbors complain. That's up for you to decide. I want to get direction on that before we finalize the draft ordinance. So I don't know if you want to talk about that now at this time or go through the rest of them. Let me know what you want to do and we can do it.
Keep going and...
Just keep going and come back to it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I?
Yoli?
Go ahead, Yoli.
Hi. Okay, so I would like to see that we have, yes, number 1, it would be noticed, just like in the paper, so we can notify the residents that surround the property that is going for a license now. And I would also like the same process that we have been doing, because if the public does want to discuss concerns or have history, that they would be heard.
Any other comments on that issue? Since I think we'll do them one as they come up then.
Okay.
I agree with Yoli.
Go ahead and stick with
Into
it.
the mic, please, Micah.
I agree with Yoli.
I agree with part of what Oli said. I believe that everybody should be given notice, and I think that it would probably best serve this commission to only hear things that have opposition.
Okay.
So if somebody does have an opposition to a particular project, then it would trigger a hearing.
I agree with Yoli. I think it should be noticed, and I think it should be.
Yeah, Yoli. Go ahead, Yoli.
Go ahead, Yoli.
I would like, I mean, I like Bob's idea. However, sometimes last minute we'll get an opposition when we sit down. You know, at the dais, you know, we'll be sitting there, and all of a sudden an email would have come in that afternoon, and then we get it in front of us that night. So I'm not sure how that would work out.
Well, how it would work out is you would notice it for a hearing, right? And if nobody objected to it, there wouldn't be a hearing. It would be automatically approved.
I have a question. Would anybody in the city have standing to bring it to a public hearing? I mean, would you have to be could you just be anybody in the city?
Anyone in the city could object to it because they could still say, for instance, even after all the work that you guys have done the last year and a half, someone could still say, you know what, no matter what, I'm still against these licenses because I think it takes property off the market for full-time use. So even though they may have a political or philosophical difference, they would still have the right to file a protest, even if they're not given the notice within. I mean, you know, in other words, I couldn't legally limit it to people. You could limit it to who gets noticed, but we can't say that only people who get noticed can protest.
All right. So it sounds like anybody could request a public hearing on an application, even for whatever reason.
Correct.
That's what I heard.
If they knew about it.
I guess my concern with that is, since we're making some pretty big changes, it seems like maybe that's something we'd consider after we've gone through this new process.
I'm fine with that.
You know what I mean? And then, but it is a really good idea is after we've done this for a couple of years to take another look at it and then see if it really would be by request only, and then anybody could bring it up. But I would imagine that if we did it and anybody could make the request, we'd just have people with the outstanding request. You know what I mean?
Like people
One
would
big
be
change at a time is what I'm thinking. That would be my position.
And my whole point is that I would like to see the planning commission move forward and actually plan, rather than become this approval body of CUPs.
So, be less administrative, more planning.
Where's time best served, sort of thing.
Is there a way we can put in here that we should relook at? Well, I guess that would come over time. Never mind.
So if I'm hearing you,
So I'm
Eric,
saying stick with
the public hearing, stick with the public notice, and then once we've been in the process for a while,
we can reconsider
bring it back and see if perhaps the public hearing portion of it is accomplishing what we really need it to accomplish.
Yeah, and then maybe, and once we mature with that for a while, we can see if it's really by request only.
Does that?
So I need to understand. Do you want me to put in something like we put in with the cannabis ordinances, that after 18 months or 2 years, the planning commission will consider whether to change the notice provisions?
Whether to change the public hearing requirements.
I would be okay.
Yeah, that seems like a good way to do it. We'll know a lot more 2 years from now.
You want to go?
I need to hear what that is.
What time frame? You want 18 months or 2 years?
2 years.
2 years.
I don't think there's going to be a lot of activity for a year. Just going to go out on a limb, so let's give it at
I
least
would
2
say 2
years.
years, yes. I'm agreeing with 2 years.
So is the consensus, everyone, 2 years? That we'll
Yes.
take another
Yes.
look?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
All right, Scott,
Can I
on to
have
the
that?
next one.
Okay, now the next one is, if you see on the next page, I'm eliminating items number 10, 11, and 12. Those are items that are specifically found in the licensing statutes in Section 3 that I don't believe are applicable to these type of licenses that you'd be granting. So I had removed those. It's just, you know, like, you know, those are things like, you don't need those, I don't think.
Sounds good.
Okay.
On the next page, under the condominium associations having 10 or more units, I removed that language because that language is applicable in another section of the ordinance, in Section 1, which applies to whether it's a condo or a single family use. So that language was duplicative of the language found in subsection 1, so I removed that because it was unnecessary.
Thank you.
And then the last one is revocation or suspension of licenses. On the last one, that was language taken out of the again Section 3 of your municipal code, where the city council is the person that can revoke licenses. We are making certain that this is the planning commission that has the power to revoke or suspend licenses. That's the same that you have right now, so I'm keeping the power with the planning commission and not putting that up to the council, and I know the council will want to keep it back at the planning commission. Questions on that one?
No, everybody's nodding yes.
Okay, great. And then on the next page, the non-transferability thing, this is intended, this is the last one of the changes, and this is basically saying that if you have one of these CUPs and you transfer it to your sister, your children, or whatever, that is not a sale that would trigger the kind of 3-sale rule. So we are allowing people who have currently have CUPs to be able to transfer to their family only to their family, and that doesn't count as a sale of the property, triggering the provision that the next transfer that would then kill the permit. So we're letting them keep in the family.
So
and that's one where you don't have to do that, but you know, I just put it there because that's what we would recommend. But you can decide to have that be different.
So Scott, a transfer to a family trust would be allowed?
Yes, it would.
One time.
Oh. A one-time?
You can't transfer it to my cousin and then my uncle and then my brother and then one
Actually, yeah, there's a good question. What's family? Is it?
One-time transfer.
We've defined family as spouses, siblings,
Children or parents?
children, or parents. That's it.
Okay.
No nieces, nephews. It's just a nuclear family.
Okay, and then can it be stipulated that you get that once?
So,
family member just
so
once.
if in a trust kind of situation, if it goes to your children, your children can't give it to somebody else? Your children can't give it to their
the children's
children?
children.
Can't go on for
And it's, that seems reasonable to me because it's not that onerous to get a
those
business
children could
permit.
be named in a family trust.
Yeah, so they would all.
Yeah.
So, what do you think of the idea of
So
one
once.
time?
I think one time is good.
So those children those children can't give it to their children?
Unless they're already set up in the trust, then they would have.
But then that's
Correct.
two.
But it's a one-time thing, then you have to reapply
Okay.
if you want to get it.
If wait a minute, if we're going to put it in a trust, it's still only, you put it in a trust, then it remains with the trust, unless you're telling me that you want to limit it to one transfer of actual people with the permit. In other words, much
Correct.
like we have done recently with the mooring permits, even though it's in a trust, if it's transferred to a different person, in other words, it may be in the trust, but if a different family member now is going to be the actual person that owns the property, that counts as a transfer, and you only get one of those. If you don't do that, then it can stay in the family trust forever, as long as the family trust remains the same. So again, I'm looking for direction as to whether you want us to, and again, how we did it with the mooring permits is we make people identify who the person is that, quote, has the permit. Even if it's in a trust, you have to identify a person. We could do the same thing here so that it's, so that they identify a person. And once that person changes, that is the, quote, free transfer you get to a member of the family. Looking for direction.
My only concern is whose responsibility is it to enforce that? I mean, that's getting pretty complex now.
My hope is that it would be staff interpretation and that they would make a decision and then keep record of that decision for future decisions, as is
Well, I
normally
think
done.
you would record the transfer in the file, and when
Yeah.
it came in again, you would go, okay, let's go pull the file and see.
Okay, if there's a way to do that, that's not.
Yeah, so the intent is family member, it seems reasonable to not have to start the whole process again for a family member, but only once. More than that, the intent would be to have to come back and apply for a permit. Correct?
Where it's real person to real person, it's a one-time.
Does that sound okay, Scott? I mean, is that clear?
That's fair. If I understand it, it's one family member. I will have language so that when we look at it next month, you can look at the language. And if we need further tweaking, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
That was the only change. Those were the only substantive changes that I made from the one that you had. The other question is, generally speaking, is the commission satisfied? I mean, we've taken your direction. We ran this up the poll to the city council. The city council agreed to do it this way, and so we've structured this in a certain way. We just want to make certain that if you have any other comments, now's the time to make them, because what we will do is we will bring this back next month as part of a public hearing to start the actual process for adoption.
Okay, yeah, and it's my understanding, this isn't the public hearing.
This is an item of discussion. I mean, it's
Excellent.
a public hearing.
And then we'll have the public hearing next month.
Next month, we'll
We're going to
note.
renotice it for a public hearing at the next meeting unless you want to formally open this as a public hearing and then continue it to the next meeting.
If we don't need to, no.
No.
Okay.
We'll start.
All we need to do is put an ad in the newspaper. That's fine.
Okay. Any other comments or adjustments or suggestions?
I have one more comment. Scott, if you could put your legalese eyes on a few words in this document, like things like the commission may, and there's a few others, reasonable notice. Isn't it easier to actually define what reasonable notice is, and rather than use vague words that require interpretation like may, like substitute that with like will?
Yes, and what we're gonna, yes, that is in the noticing. Now that I have exactly what you want, I'm going to eliminate all of that discretionary language.
Perfect.
Except for that the applicant may bring an attorney. I can't prohibit them not to bring an attorney as much as you guys would enjoy that.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott, and Isaac, and your whole team that has worked on this
Yeah.
so much.
I'm feeling good about this. I mean, I think we made some real headway, and it's building on what we've done over the last 30, 40 years and refined it, I think, one more notch better than it was last year. Let's see.
Moving ahead.
Progress.
We can't pat each other on the back, but we can do that.
No, it hasn't happened yet, but
No, but
we'll see what happens at the public hearing and what kind of comments we get.
Can I make a public service announcement?
Please. Thank you, Scott. Yes.
Just want to remind everyone, I know we're all very much worried about the COVID-19, but don't forget, we also have the census going on, so be sure and go online and fill out your census.
Can I say something in Spanish there?
Yes, ma'am.
So, si hay gente que habla en español, que están viendo esa junta, que ustedes deben de, todo el mundo debe de hacer, que si vive en Catalina, en Avalon, necesitas hacer el censo, y que es muy importante que sabemos cuántas personas viven aquí y cuántos en cada casa, porque todo significa mucho dinero para nuestra ciudad. Que si tenemos gente aquí que necesita algo, que recibimos el dinero que debemos. So, no tiene miedo de nada de esto del censo, porque es muy privado y importante. Okay?
Thank you, Paula, but I think you
And
said a
that's
lot
been our-
more than what I said.
Our funding message.
Yes. Thank you, Paula, very much for doing that.
Sure. I want to do it that way, too.
Any other?
I would like to say there's been groups started, Avalon Mutual Aid, to help out in this when it's going on. It's an idea in development as the situation develops, but we have around 30 people who have volunteered to be available to run grocery runs, drugstore runs for people who need to stay inside. Like I said, it's still developing. But we do have a number, 310-780-0938, and that's set up by the Recreation Department. They've partnered with us to get this going, and that number will help it run smoothly. And this is solidarity, not charity. We're just neighbors helping each other. Don't swallow your pride. Feel free to call, please. Again, 310-780-0938. And
Thank you,
thank you to
Micah.
Dan Hunke for setting that up.
Thank you, Micah. That's a good one. Everybody else, go home, be safe.
That's it. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Good night, Tony.
Good night, Tony.
Tony's actually on the mainland with his family, so.
Does he still watch this?
He could still be watching, right?